Hi. In this video, we're going to be looking at how does money flow throughout the economy. So we looked at different sectors. We're going to be looking at different sectors of the economy and where money flows. And so it's called the circular flow of money diagram. And this is probably the most important diagram that you can ever learn in economics because it basically tells us everything that we're going to be looking at from here on to the future. Okay, so it gives us 3 or 4 important principles. So let's look at them. Okay, so at our most basic level in the economy, we have sellers and buyers, or households and firms. So we have households and firms. And we want to look at how money flows. So I'm going to have where money is flowing to. So the direction of the arrow indicates how money is flowing, and then I'm going to put a little note what that money is being used for. Okay, so for example, do households give firms money? And the answer is yes. Every time you go to Walmart and you buy something, you're giving Walmart money. So households send money to firms, downward arrow from households to firms, for exchange in goods and services. So G&S for goods and services. I give my barber money for my haircut, okay? And in exchange, he gives me a haircut for money, okay? But money flows from my pocket to my barber, or money flows from me to Hy-Vee when I buy groceries. How about firms? Do firms give money to households? And the answer is yes. Drake University, which we would consider a firm, is producing education, right? But I work for Drake University, and I'm getting money in terms of wages. So wages and rent. So money flows from Drake to my pocket in the form of my wage. Or if you have a job, you get paid for that job. Okay? So at our most basic level, just with households and firms, we're going to see money circling like this. For every good and service that a firm receives, it sends back money to the household in the form of wages. So this is why we say, when we say that production, GDP, is also a measure of income, it's because at its most basic principle, the only reason that there's income is because goods and services are being sold and produced by the firm. Okay, so this value of the money has to be equal to that value of the money. Okay, next, do we have other sectors of the economy? And the answer obviously is yes. So, well, what do we have? We have households and we have firms, but I don't know, who produces the roads? Well, that's not a firm nor a household, but it's the government. So the government supplies the roads that we drive on. So that's another sector of the economy. So we have the government. I'm going to put the government right in the middle. And we want to know, does money flow to the government? So does money go to the government? And the answer is yes. Out of every paycheck, I send some money to the government in the form of taxes. So money goes from households to the government in the form of taxes. Okay, and the same thing with firms. So money goes from firms to the government in the form of taxes. Okay, money goes from the government, however, back to households. The government provides health care in some circumstances, so Medicare and Medicaid. It provides food stamps. It provides unemployment benefits. It provides Social Security, right? And all that money is coming from the government back to households. So money flows from the government to households in the form of transfer payments. And then lastly, does the government ever give money to firms? And the answer is yes. So does the government actually produce an aircraft carrier? Well, the answer is no, but the government buys them from somebody who does. So the government doesn't make an F-16. A private company or a firm manufactures an F-16. So that might be made by Boeing or McDonnell Douglas, which is an aircraft firm. But the government buys F-16s from that firm. So it's sending money to firms in the form of goods and services. Okay? And then lastly, Drake University buys goods and services. Okay, so Drake University had to buy our desks, it had to buy our chairs, it had to buy the video that you're watching, or the video camera, it had to buy a clock and a computer. Okay, but those are all goods and services for Drake University to work. So money flows from firms to other firms in the form of goods and services. Okay, so Drake University bought a computer from HP or Dell. So money went from Drake University to Dell, or one firm to another firm, for a good and service. Okay, we're looking at that and, okay, it's looking pretty complete. But it's not all there yet. Okay, so if we look at the flow of money, right, all this money is being exchanged, so taxes plus transfer payments plus wages and rent have to be equal to the value of goods and services. Otherwise, we wouldn't be equal with money, right? So this flow, everything so far, or our income measure, has to be equal to the value of what we produced in goods and services. That's what this is showing. However, what about us? So like my shirt, I don't know where my shirt is made. It says made in China. So my shirt is made in China. Well, if we're looking at US GDP, I bought my shirt in the US, but was it really right? So should we include that? Well, the answer is no, it should be included in Chinese GDP. So there's the whole rest of the world. So we have the rest of the world. And when I buy this shirt that was not made in the US, money is going from me to China in the form of goods and services. But this is foreign. So foreign goods and services. Well, we don't want to include foreign goods and services in GDP. So we call this imports. Okay? And then lastly, does money flow from the rest of the world to the US? And the answer is yes. The US is the largest producer of cotton in the world. It's the largest producer of corn in the world. Okay? So if the rest of the world buys cotton from the US, money goes from the rest of the world to the US, or to US firms, for goods and services. Our goods and services flow from US firms to the rest of the world, and money is being exchanged back. Okay? But these are local. And we call these exports. So the US exports cotton or corn to the rest of the world in exchange for money. So we're close, but we're not quite there. So is there anywhere else that money flows? Well, what do I do with my paycheck? Usually it goes to the bank. And the bank is part of the financial system. So for this sake, we'll say that money flows to the financial system in the forms of savings. When I put money into the bank, it's a form of savings. Or I'm not spending it now, so I can spend it later. It's savings until I spend it. So it goes to the bank until I need it back. Okay? And the financial system then can lend to firms. So firms can borrow money from the financial system by household savings. So money goes into the financial system by household saving, and then firms borrow that money. So if Apple wants to build a new headquarters, it can borrow money from the financial system to build a new headquarters building. Or if Drake University wanted to build a new business school, well, we don't have that money laying around, but what we could do is get a loan for it. So Drake University could borrow the money through a loan from the financial system. And that can be there because households are putting money into the financial system. Okay? And then lastly, notice if we built a building, Drake wouldn't build a building, somebody else would, right? We would hire a construction company to build a new business school, right? So we'd have to borrow money to build that new business school. So these things are going to be equal. This borrowing right here is going to be equal to this goods and services, which equals this. So money flowing into the financial system has to equal money flowing out of the financial system. Okay? So overall, this is our circular flow. This is how money moves through the economy. And from this, we get 3 important concepts, maybe 4. Okay? So concept 1, how can we find GDP? Well, GDP is the value of everything that we've produced. So if we add the value of all local goods and services produced, that will get us GDP, right? The value of final goods and services produced in a country in a given year. So we can add up all local goods and services combined. Well, how are goods and services bought? Households buy local goods and services from firms. That's consumption spending. So all spending on goods and services by households is what we call consumption spending. Okay? So this is going to be C, but this is C also, because I spend money at Walmart for a Chinese-made shirt. Okay? But overall, if I take all of consumption spending, that has to be one component of GDP. So GDP, or Y, equals C. Well, local goods and services are also bought by other firms. This is called investment spending. So when firms buy things that it can use to produce, when Drake University buys a classroom to produce education, we call that investment spending. So if we take all final goods and services bought by households plus by firms, in I, investment spending, plus all local goods and services bought by the government, right? So we have goods and services from the government. We call that government spending. Then we also have the rest of the world buying local goods and services. This needs to be included in US GDP. So C plus I plus G plus exports, which we call X. But remember how we have this right here as part of consumption spending, right? This shirt was bought at Walmart in the form of consumption spending. It came from my pocket, a consumer, a household, but it went to China. So we need to subtract that off. So if we take up everything, C plus I plus G plus exports, and then we subtract off imports, everything that we bought that wasn't made in the US, that should give us the value of everything that was made in the US total. So we subtract off imports, which is M. So GDP is going to be equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Consumption spending plus investment spending plus government spending plus exports minus imports. Or Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX for net exports. Okay, so that's key point 1. Key point 2 from this diagram is that notice how we, at the basic level, we said that everything that was produced has to be equal to the value of income. Firms are making money from goods and services. And then they also send money back to households in the form of wages. So this income has to be equal to that income. Okay? So overall, money flowing through the economy, or a measure of income tax statements, is going to be equal to the value of all goods and services produced in the US. So GDP equals total income. And we find that from this circular flow diagram. Okay? And then lastly, the last thing that we notice comes from the financial system. We said that investment spending is equal to borrowing, but borrowing is equal to savings. So total investment spending, big I, this I right here, has to be equal to total savings, big S. So investment equals savings. And we're going to prove that a little bit later, okay, in a later chapter. So for right now, this is our circular flow diagram. And what this diagram is showing us is what we're going to be looking at throughout the rest of this, semester. Number one, we can add together the components of GDP. We can add consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports, and that gets us a measure of everything that we produced in the economy. Secondly, we can add up total income or total tax statements in the economy, how much profit firms made, plus how much wages people made, plus how much taxes were paid. Okay, if we add all of that together, we get a measure of GDP, because the only reason that income is produced is for the goods and services that we produce. The only reason that I'm getting paid by Drake is because I'm producing education. So that income, or my wage, is equal to the value of the production that I've made in education. Income equals production, GDP. And then lastly, from the financial system, investment equals savings. So we're going to be using all of these simultaneously throughout the rest of the semester. So we know y equals c plus I plus g. Or when I say GDP is a measure of a standard of living, it's because it measures income. Or if we look at the financial system, you should be thinking that investment equals savings. Okay, so all of these are going to influence GDP, and all of them are important. But these are the three main key concepts that arise from this circular flow diagram. Okay, so you should definitely know this circular flow diagram. Thanks.